Thank you for the presentation. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Purina, for the invitation. I'm very glad to share with you some results of our study about the effects of diet digestibility and its impact on gut microbiome modulation. And I hope that some of those results can give to us just a little bit more insight about the effects of diet and its relationship on dysbiosis and even on E. coli. So to get started, I have no conflicts of interest to disclose. And my talk will be divided in 4 main topics. At first, I will briefly talk about diet digestibility, focusing on protein digestibility. And then I will present the results of our study at UFPR in Brazil, and then ended up with a brief summary. So to get started, I will talk a lot about the ADCs. ADCs are the apparent digestibility coefficients of the diet. That means the relationship between nutrient intake minus the nutrient excreted divided by the nutrient intake. And we know that usually the higher the protein and other macronutrient digestibility, the better for dog and cat nutrition. But what happened with the undigestible fraction of the diet that reaches the gut? We just saw with Dr. Simpson that maybe there is some kind of substrate that can modulate the gut microbiome and stimulates the growth of specific groups of bacteria, and not only specific groups of bacteria, but also of their metabolites. So we'll talk a little bit more about it today. And when we look at the apparent digestibility coefficients of the main micronutrients that are inside a pet food, we can see that usually lipids and the gelatinized, the cooked starch are highly digestible. They usually present the ADCs higher than 90% or even higher than 95, 98%. However, when we look at the protein digestibility, we usually observe a lot of variation among the different diets. And why is that? We know that we have a lot of different protein sources that we can use in pet food manufacture. And here I present to you the apparent digestibility coefficients of crude protein of different protein sources that are common protein sources that we can use in pet food. And we can see here that, for example, feather meal usually present a low digestibility of protein, usually lower than 80%. And here I would like to highlight the 80% because this is the lowest apparent digestibility coefficient of crude protein that is recommended for pet food formulation according to FEDIAF. But here we can see other protein sources. We have meat and bone meal with around 80% protein digestibility. Poultry byproducts meal, around 85, 86% protein digestibility. But also we have protein sources with high digestibility of protein. For example, spray-dried egg, spray-dried plasma, corn gluten meal, fresh meat, or soy protein isolate, with coefficients of apparent digestibility even higher than 95%. And it's interesting because we just saw different average apparent digestibility coefficients of protein for different protein sources. But if we look at the same protein source, for example, here we have meat and bone meal in purple, and the red dots are the poultry byproducts meal. If we look at the meat and bone meal, for example, we can see that in literature, we have a lot of descriptions of different apparent digestibility coefficients for the same protein source. So, for example, here, meat and bone meal can vary from the digestibility of protein from around 65% to almost 85% protein digestibility. While the poultry byproduct meal usually is highly digestible and can vary around 78 to almost 90% protein digestibility. Thus, it's important for us not only compare different protein sources, but at the same protein source, it's very important to understand what kind of, for example, thermal processing conditions these protein sources suffers to influence on their diet digestibility later. And here I would like to share with you the results of the apparent digestibility coefficients of crude protein of 86 extruded diets for dogs. These are data from our laboratory from the last few years. And in Brazil, it's very common for us to classify and to divide the commercial extruded diets for dogs and cats in different commercial segments. Thus, here I divided in the standard segment that is very common in Brazil, premium foods and super premium foods. Standard diets usually are the cheapest ones, are the diets that usually present a low nutritional density and usually are fabricated with ingredients with lower digestibility. Thus, for example, we can see here that on average, the standard dog foods in Brazil presented around 790% protein digestibility, while the super premium foods presented around 85% protein digestibility. But here we can also see the variation inside the same commercial segment. And we can see that in standard diet, we have a lot of variation on protein digestibility, reaching values lower than 80%. Thus, for example, 74, 72, 73% of protein digestibility. And considering the apparent digestibility coefficients of protein of those diets, I here bring to you a calculation of the undigestible protein intake calculated for a 10-kilo dog. Thus, we can see here that a 10-kilo dog fed the standard diet would present around 8 grams of intake of undigestible protein intake per day, while the same 10-kilo dog fed the super premium diets would present undigestible protein intake of around 6 grams per day. But here we have other interesting data to look, because we can see here that those values were just the average values. But when we look in the individual values, we can find some diets, even being super premium diets, highly digestible, that can result in similar undigestible protein intake of a standard diet for dogs. And why is that? This is because the undigestible protein fraction of the diet depends on the apparent digestibility coefficient of the protein, but also depends on the crude protein concentration of the diet. And super premium diets for dogs here in Brazil are more expensive, but they also usually present high nutritional density. Thus, they usually present higher protein concentrations than the standard diets. We can also take a closer look here and compare better the 4 super premium diets with 4 standard diets. And we can see here in the line the apparent digestibility coefficients of crude protein, that yes, they were lower for the standard diets, around 7-8%, while the digestibility of protein of super premium diets were higher, around 82 to 84%. However, again, the crude protein concentration was also higher in the super premium diets. Thus, here in orange, we have the undigestible protein intake that was similar between the super premium and those 4 standard diets. So this is another point that is important for us to consider, just as Dr. Simpson showed to us about the BARF diet, that is a high protein diet. And we can take together all those 86 data of digestibility for diets for dogs And we did a regression analysis here, and we can see that the undigestible protein intake of dogs in grams per kilo metabolic body weight varied between 0.8 grams, 1 gram per kilo metabolic body weight to until around 2 grams per kilo metabolic body weight. And we can also see here a really beautiful coefficient of determination of 97% for this relationship between the real values and the predicted values. Thus, we have here an equation that we can use that can calculate the undigestible protein intake based on the apparent digestibility coefficient of crude protein and also on crude protein concentration in grams per 1,000 kilocalories of the diet. And here I would like to bring to you another example that is a more practical example of how we can use this equation. So here we have, for example, the apparent digestibility coefficient of crude protein of a diet that we can determine based on the lower undigestible protein intake that we can target. Thus, for example, if I consider 1 gram per kilo metabolic body weight as a low value of undigestible protein intake for a dog, I can put here 1, and I can change here for the crude protein content of the diet for us to estimate which need to be the apparent digestibility coefficient of this diet. Thus, for example, here we have a diet with 18% crude protein would need at least 82% protein digestibility to reach the target of 1 gram undigestible protein per kilo metabolic body weight. On another hand, if I work in a pet food industry and I would formulate a diet with 30% crude protein, it would result in at least 88% protein digestibility for this diet if I want to reach a lower undigestible protein intake of 1 gram of protein per kilo metabolic body weight. So this equation can be used as a practical way for us to determine the fewest apparent digestibility coefficient to reduce here the undigestible protein intake of the diets for dogs. Professor Ricardo Vasconcelos and Josiane Volpato from the State University of Maringá, here in Paraná State of Brazil, and from Senofel Lab, kindly share with us the results of the digestibility of protein of 68 extruded diets for cats. And we can see here that the same equation that we did, the same regression analysis that we did for dogs, the results for cats. And it's very interesting because cats love to be different, always. So we can see here a higher variability in the results when compared with the results that we found with dogs. Thus, the coefficient of determination was not that high, but was around 49%. And there is an interesting feature here because we can see that overall, the undigestible protein intake per kilo metabolic body weight for cats, surprisingly, was lower than what we observed for dogs. So here we can see that they varied around 0.55 to around 1.7 grams per kilo metabolic body weight for cats, but a lot of data was here within the 1 gram per kilo metabolic body weight. That was the value that I consider as a low undigestible protein intake for dogs. And here I show to you the equation that was determined with those data. But why was that? Because we usually think that cats eat a higher protein diet, a diet with a higher protein concentration, and thus I would expect a higher undigestible protein intake. However, we can see here the average values of the digestibility of protein for dogs and protein digestibility for those 68 diets for cats. And we can see that on average, cats presented a higher protein digestibility of almost 87%, while the average values for dogs were around 82%. And even that, we can see that even the lowest value of digestibility of protein for cats was a higher value than usually we observed for dogs here. So we have some differences between dogs and cats that we need to further investigate, but we know that usually cats present a great physiological capability to digest protein. And besides, the diets for cats in Brazil usually present better quality. We do not have a lot of diets for cats from the standard segment as we have for dogs, for example. So it's possible that these characteristics influence those results. But okay, now that we talked a little bit with values about the undigestible protein intake, we can understand a little bit better which would be the results or the effects of the higher undigestible protein intake in the gut microbiome of dogs. And the study that we conducted at the Federal University of Paraná in our lab aimed to evaluate the effects of the apparent digestibility coefficients of the diet on fecal dysbiosis index, bacterial taxa, and fermentation metabolites in adult healthy dogs. So for this study, we considered the data of 6 strudel diets for adult dogs. And here we divided the diets in 3 high digestible diets and 3 low digestible diets. The high digestible diets presented around 87, almost 87, apparent digestibility coefficient for crude protein, while the low digestible diets presented around 8% protein digestibility. And here we have the undigestible protein intake. For the high digestible diets, it was around 1 gram per kilo metabolic body weight. And for the low digestible diets, it was around 1.5 grams per kilo metabolic body weight. And here we have the chemical composition of the diets. And we can see here that they presented similar values for crude protein, similar values for fat, around 10%, but they presented different values for total dietary fiber. Thus, the high digestible diets presented a higher concentration of total dietary fiber when compared with the low digestible diets. However, we can see here that the soluble fiber fraction was pretty similar between the two groups. We know that the soluble fiber fraction is the fiber fraction with the highest potential to modulate the gut microbiome because usually they present highly fermentability. So we believe that the difference in total dietary fiber from the two groups did not influence the results, but mainly the difference in protein digestibility of these diets. And it's also important to address that diets had no prebiotics, probiotics, or postbiotics that could influence the results. The dogs, at least 8 dogs per diet, ate the diet throughout 15 days for adaptation, followed by 5 days of total fecal collection. On the 20th day, we also did the collection of fresh feces to analyze the dysbiosis index and the 7 bacteria plus total bacteria that comprise in the dysbiosis index, but also we evaluated some fermentation products of the feces. With the results, we did a correlation analysis to see the relationship between those variables with the digestibility of protein of the diets. So here as results, we can see that the only bacteria that presented a positive correlation with the apparent digestibility coefficient of crude protein of the diets was Turicibacter. Thus, the higher the protein digestibility of the diet, here the blue dots represent the group that were fed with the high digestible diets, the higher was the Turicibacter in feces. The red squares, we have the animals that were fed with the low digestible diet. So we can see here that dogs that were fed with low digestible diets presented lower fecal concentrations of Turicibacter. And here is also interesting to note that the dogs here in this figure, you can see a little bit better. Dogs fed the low digestible diets also presented a higher variation in the Turicibacter concentration in feces. And this is important because Turicibacter is a short chain fatty acid producer. It is involved in serotonin metabolism in the gut. Thus, it can play a role, for example, in gut motility. And it is a very sensible bacteria that comprises the dysbiosis index, and thus it is reduced in dogs and cats with gastrointestinal disorders. So here we can see a more equalized content of Turicibacter when dogs were fed diets with high protein concentration. And now here we can talk with Dr. Simpson that show really interesting results about E. coli previously. And we also observed a correlation between the protein digestibility of the diet and the E. coli in feces, and this was a negative correlation. Thus, the higher the protein digestibility, the lower the E. coli in feces of dogs. And here again, we can also look at the low digestible diets and observe a higher variation in the E. coli content in the feces in this group. E. coli likes to eat protein, amino acids, and it's natural to expect this increase in E. coli when we increase the protein as a substrate for its growth. But here we have some to point it out that is important, that although we observe this kind of correlation with Turicibacter and E. coli, both of them were within the normal range for healthy dogs according to the GI lab. So we did not observe any unusual value that would indicate, for example, a gastrointestinal disorder. We have some dogs that were almost there in the cutoff value to skip the health range, but they did not reach it. And here we have other two very interesting results that were the negative correlation and even a stronger correlation between the digestibility of the diets and the dysbiosis index in the Streptococcus in feces of dogs. So here we can see that the higher the digestibility of protein of the diet, the lowest the dysbiosis index and the lowest was the Streptococcus in feces. And here we have some animals that skipped the cutoff value of healthy animals. So we have here some individuals that when fed the low digestible diet presented what we can call a mild dysbiosis. The same for Streptococcus, we can observe here some individuals that presented a higher Streptococcus than the reference values for healthy animals. Regarding the fermentation metabolites in feces, we can also see here a negative correlation that indicates that the higher the protein digestibility, the lowest the fecal ammonia concentration in feces, the lowest the total branched chain fatty acids in feces, and the lowest the total biogenic amines in feces. So again, not only some bacteria shift with the increase in the undigestible protein in the gut, but also their metabolites changed as expected. And it's important for us to highlight that some of those metabolites can be toxic and present pro-inflammatory effects to the gut mucosa. Besides, they also contribute to an enrichment in the pH in the lumen that will provide a very nice environment for potential pathogenic bacteria to grow. And they also contribute very much to the bad odor of the feces of dogs and cats. So, as a summary, we can conclude that protein digestibility can modulate the gut microbiome and its metabolites. And Streptococcus was the bacteria that presented the greatest correlation with the apparent digestibility coefficient of gut protein. Low protein digestibility can result in shifts that is similar to a mild dysbiosis, but we don't know about those effects in long term. So it's very important that new studies be conducted to evaluate if a dog that eats a low digestible diet in the future is more likely, for example, to develop gastrointestinal disorders. So I would like to thank you very much for the attention. Thank you, Purina, and a special thank you for all my students and my colleagues from our lab. Thank you very much.